come out with. So I want you to give a warm welcome to Josh Mellicker.
And we thank you for the opportunity to show you some cool stuff tonight. We're just going to flip through this really quick because, you know, we don't have a lot of time and we want to make sure that you stay entertained. But the idea here is that the focus of our presentation is about the visual effect that your projects have on your viewers, which is, you know, pretty important. Obviously, you try to shoot stuff the best you can. You try to make stuff look as good in the camera as you can, but once you get it in post, you have the opportunity to make it look better. And there is a language that I don't think anyone ever masters. You know, you learn about the language of emotion and feeling and how to communicate this language. And a really interesting thing that I actually just learned a few years ago is most people think of the brain as the only part of the body that thinks, but actually your retinas process information before they send visual impulses down the optic nerve. So as a colorist, you actually are you can control the blood chemistry of your viewers. You can make their heart rate faster or slower. You can make their respiration faster or slower. You can, you know, have them control their adrenaline. And it's really interesting how the use of certain, you know, basically visual properties can influence that. Now, how does this relate to your job as a post-production person? It doesn't. I just thought it was cool, like trivial fact. So this is what we're going to kind of whip through. Obviously, you know, we all kind of instinctively know that certain colors mean certain things. And we just put some of these together. We kind of want to get to the fun part. I don't know, do you want to talk about these, Ryan? You put them together.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've all heard about the color wheel, this and that. I guess the one thing I'd like to talk about is we all associate warm colors with a few things. We associate it with either happy, you know, things like we're in front of a candlelit dinner, a romantic thing, but we also associate it with scary things, so frightening things and lust. So one of the big things I was dealing with early on is how can warm colors mean these very opposite things? How can at one point I feel afraid and the other very safe? Well, I think it comes down to actually the physiological aspect that Josh was talking about. Warmer colors actually intensify our emotions. So I think of those as stimulants, right? So warmer colors tend to stimulate emotions. So I think of them as escalating our energy. So when you're thinking about your film, be it in a cut or in pre-pro in the design, you want to say, I need to amp up the energy. That's where I go to for warm colors. So on the cool side, we've seen, you know, desaturated blue films. You know, they make us feel sad, depressed. A lot of crime films do this all the time. But banks and spas use cool colors all the time, and they make us feel at peace. Well, these are depressants. These are things that make us feel relaxed, but also sad. So in the same way, you know, alcohol is a depressant. You know, it works both ways. So that's how I like to think of warm colors and cool colors. I hope it's helpful to you. It's been helpful to me to think of them that way. And it's how we can combine different colors to create what seem to be dueling emotional states in our viewers.
Yeah, so, you know, orange and teal kind of representing that contrast and that conflict. You notice that a very popular color treatment. But it's not always orange and teal. Sometimes it's teal and orange, you'll find in some films. They like switch the order. You know, high contrast, low contrast. You know, every choice you make influences how people are going to approach. And you can also train your viewers. You know, there's a great blog post about Black Hawk Down, where in that case, blue represented safety and orange represented danger. And so after it trained you that every time, you know, there was violence, it was, you know, orange, and then every time they got to safety, it was blue, pretty soon they could just show you a scene, it was orange, and you were just like, oh, what's going to happen? Like Pavlov, you know, I was trained, so, and then it's blue, and it's like, I can relax now. Everything's going to be okay. And you can, you can kind of train your viewers with color treatments. Traffic use color to, you know, designate different locations. And, you know, like in The Sixth Sense, there was no red in the movie except for in the scenes where something really weird was about to happen. And then they'd put something really bright red in the scene, and that would, again, kind of train you to understand that. So really what we're getting to here is that there are certain qualities, overall qualities, and I was just thinking, I started shooting professional projects about 25 years ago, and we were just, my wife and I were trying to get gigs, and we were just struggling and starving. I mean, we just couldn't get any gigs. And after a couple of years, we started shooting some projects, and then we started getting a bunch of good projects. You know, we shot car commercials in Nordstrom's and stuff like that. And you might ask, well, what was the turning point? Why were people saying, gosh, your footage looks better than these big companies? And I would like to say it's because we really improved, but the fact is that I bought a Tiffin Soft Effects 3 filter for 99 bucks, and I shot everything with it. And clients would look at the footage and go, holy crap, that looks great. And I'm like, I figured it out. It's a trick. So there are certain things that just make people say, wow. And, you know, like a few things that I put together is there's something about a very lush kind of color space in S-curve that makes films and photographs just look beautiful, and paintings too, for that matter. There's definitely highlights when they're just kind of magical. That's something where people are often going to say, wow, that looks nice. Shallow depth of field, obviously, is just one of those things. If you ever see someone look at a photo and they go, wow, that's a nice photo, only about a quarter of that photo is going to be in focus. I mean, almost guaranteed. Now, that's not always true. You got Ansel Adams and the landscapes that are all in deep focus. But in general, when you see something where most of the photo's blurry, wow, that looks really nice. Vignettes tend to, there's a reason for all these things too. Vignettes focus your eye on the subject of the frame. Unless your subject is half, you know, all the way on the edge, a nice vignette is going to bring your attention, you know, in and help tell your story, because it's not this whole frame competing for your attention, it's the middle of the frame, but you still have, you know, the whole screen to play with. So the real question to me in post is, how do I get any clip to instantly look spectacular? Where's the magic button in, you know, in these programs? And just to ask a quick question, how many people here are using Final Cut 7 in editing? So we have, all right, got the 7 people. How about Final Cut 10? So we got a bunch of people. Premiere and Avid. That's cool. So we're going to show you something today that we made because, you know, we edit projects, and I always wanted I wanted that equivalent of that Soft Effects 3 filter, but even better. I didn't want everything just looking glowy. I just wanted stuff to look really good, no matter what the clip was. And so we've been working on these plugins for, I don't know, years, really, on and off. I mean, not constantly, but, you know, tweaking them. So they're called FilmStyles. And, you know, Michael has devoted the last 15 years of his life to creating this community, and he talked about this projector, and it's really exciting. And I think I have a way that we could get this projector. But let's look at these plugins first, and then let's talk about it. I think I got an idea that truly all of us in this room would be pretty easy. well, let's take. I'll FilmStyle one clip, and then Ryan will jump in and do one. You want to do that? Just straight up. Okay, so this, you can't see it that well. This is supposed to be this romantic proposal scene. And, I mean, it's just blah. It's not really telling the story. It's not horrible, but it certainly doesn't look like a movie. It looks like somebody has a camera, you know, camcorder, and they took the lens cap off. And so I'm going to grab this FilmStyles plugin. There's, let's see, how many are there? How many are there? There's a bunch, but the one called FilmStyles is my favorite, and I actually use that on every clip, pretty much in every project that I'm doing. So you drag it onto the clip, and boom. All right, thanks for coming, everybody. And that's the. So the biggest thing is, I mean, there's tons of FilmLique filters, but they're so complicated. They have like 300 presets, and each preset has like 78 controls. And the thing is, time, you know, is valuable. And I just really have always wanted something simple. And so we worked really hard. I mean, we definitely had more controls, but we worked really hard to pare this down to the essentials. And the FilmLick slider is basically S-curve. So that's what gets you your film. Actually, let me just turn some of this stuff off so we can start from scratch pretty much. So there's kind of the original clip. The FilmLick slider is that, that Kodak Fujifilm kind of S-curve. It's not just contrast, it's actually, it's pretty complex. But what it's doing is trying to make that clip look like it was shot on film, essentially. Now, one thing, the other problem that I had with some film filters is that they work great as long as your clip is exposed about the same as the one in their demo. So in other words, if they have an outdoor clip, it's fine, but if you have a low-key clip, it just doesn't work. And so we put exposure and restore shadows sliders in. Exposure is just the overall exposure of the scene. And then if the film look, which makes everything look better, is crushing the shadows too much, you've got restore shadows. So this slider is going to bring a little more detail into the shadow areas. Saturation, it's nice to have right there. I know you can hit, Command 6, and then you can go over here, and then if you're not on it, you can click over here, and then you can click over there. But when you're cutting something, maybe you don't want to do all that clicking around. Maybe you just want to have a slider right there so you can either, desaturate or bring it a little saturated. Magic, what it actually technically does is it adds magic. So the higher it is, the more magic it adds, and if you want less magic, then you bring it down. Like right now, it's got 31.46 magic. And you want more magic. Yeah, I mean, this is a proposal scene, so you bring this up. Now we got the exposure a little hot, so we can bring that down. So it's really easy to, kind of get this. Actually, I think in this case we want the exposure down, restore shadows up. Then we've got the vignette, which, very subtle. And the other thing is we made these controls, they don't go to extremes. You can't get this vignette. Like the vignette, Apple's vignette's horrible. It basically looks like a black construction paper with an oval cut out of it, But this vignette, you can bring it in so it's just a very subtle kind of vignetting. And then there's also a size. So you can choose to have the vignette really small and just really focus on this, like a center spot, or you can bring it out. But the controls are made so you can go to the extremes, and it really doesn't do a very extreme effect.
Can you aim the vignette?
You can't, but that's a great idea.
Coming up.
Yeah, we could. I mean, that is a good idea because you don't want your subject in the center at all times. But generally, the vignette's really only the frame, the outside of the frame. But that is a cool idea. The other thing I'm going to do to FilmStyle this clip is we have a 35mm depth of field plugin, which you can adjust. And when you first put it on, it gives you this pink tune. And what that allows you to do is basically fine-tune it. Like you can put it where you want in terms of X and Y. You can make it as big as you want. In this case, I really just want her face and her hands in focus, so I'm going to make it a little bit higher. And then once you have that dialed in, then you turn off the tune checkbox. And now you've got the blur control, so you can, and again, it doesn't go crazy. It just goes enough to where, like if I turn this off, you can see the fireplace. These implements are super sharp. This guy who's proposing, his ear is super sharp. You turn it on, it really doesn't do much. I mean, that's the whole point, is it's not, see with that 2K projector, you can see exactly what it was doing. It's true. But it's subtle, and so now to look at the before and after, sometimes how I do a before and after is option drag a clip on top of itself, and then we can take these filters off the top clip, and then of course V does a disable. So you can go to the same frame. Let's find a good frame here. Come on, look up, Holly. There we go. And so you can hit before and after, and I think that I can do this full screen. So we have, V does not work on full screen. Yeah. Anyway, but if we, here's the original. Slice the top clip in half. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Anyway, so that's the original clip, and then the FilmStyle clip. Okay, Ryan.
So I'm sure all of you know, a lot of what we run into, especially with digital cameras, is we get really gross, blown out skies. So our subject is always going to be our point of focus. That's what we need to set exposure for. But unfortunately, we can't always shoot on an Alexa or a Red. And sometimes in our everyday life cutting and post, you get, you know, kind of some nasty blown out footage that's clipped. So what I want to show you here is how we can restore this sky. So what I'm going to do first is throw on the FilmStyles filter that Josh just showed you, just to make it look awesome really quick. Okay, that's a lot better, right? Like, took 0 time. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is drag what we call the dramatic sky. And this one's really cool because what I can do is actually control the horizon line with a tint. Yeah, it's pretty badass. So I'm going to turn off FilmStyle so you can see exactly what just this plugin is doing. So if I take the horizon line, I can control X and Y if you want to tilt it. So what I like to do is I like to bring it up because you don't want it actually covering the subject's head here. So happy is basically going to make it blue, right? And then stormy is going to make it pretty sad here, right? So you can go back and forth on these. Bring this down a little bit.
Now, if you want more happy, you turn the happy up. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay.
That's true. And so this is, you can see this is basically just a mix effect on this slider. Okay, so the other cool thing is, let's say you nailed this awesome sunset, but part of it is blown out. You can go through and actually pick really any color on the spectrum here instantly. So if we do that in combination with FilmStyles, the before and after is pretty dramatic, and really all I did was just drag a filter onto a clip. So here's before, it just really looks like a home video, right? And then after, I'd watch that movie. Yeah, you want to see it? All right, cool. Let's do day for night real quick.
I thought we were going to trade.
Nope. In a minute. No, I've been given a challenge. So the way we do day for night is we take the day for night filter. And so obviously this is not going to look like, okay, so what's the problem with James Bond day for night, right? How do we spot it? It's shadows, right? You can see shadows. So obviously you have to have decent footage that's shot, prepared day for night. But what we can do here is, let me turn off FilmStyles again and go back. Go ahead.
What if somebody was on a beach? You wanted to make that?
Yeah, if they're on a beach, what I'd do is I'd drag this on. And see, what you can see here is this is not, we don't have shadows here that are making it obviously daytime. And because you see the sun glinting off, that can also be moonlight. And what we can do is control our exposure here, if I select the clip. So depending on how night-timey you want it to be. And this is going to control the color cast that's being put on the clip and our saturation. So our eyes actually at night see much fewer colors. I think we have this idea in our head that nighttime is blue, but it's really not. It's actually, a lot of the colors are getting desaturated. So that's going to control our saturation. And what we do here is we actually have this awesome toggle to darken the sky. And again, this is a mix effect to make it more dark, and we can drop the horizon line. So what I like to do is bring the horizon line up and then blend edge so that we can get that really, really nice fade. And yeah, here's our... Well, because what I can do to make it so awesome with Magic, bam, throw FilmStyles on there, right? So the vignette obviously looks a little ridiculous right now, so I pull that back. Now we can put on Magic, and you can see, I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, but there's halation on the highlights on the waves here. Pretty badass, right? You bet.
Now, why would I want this when Apple has a day for night filter? Let's just, here, let's look. If I go all and then like night, yeah. Yeah, what's wrong with that? That, yeah, and you can actually, one cool thing about the built-in one, it's free, and if you bring the, let's say you're shooting something, you want it to be at like a moonless, starless night, you just bring this down. And so, yeah, why would I have to buy
Yeah, I mean,
filters when
theirs is
have
much
this?
more accurate than ours.
Yeah, the other thing, what I was going to do, I'm going to actually FilmStyle is slightly different, which is there's an Amelie filter in FilmStyles. And yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the filters are named after basically looks that we were inspired by. So we've got 300, Amelie, Casablanca, Domino. So the whole idea is like, man, I need it quirky. I want to be Jean-Pierre Jeunet today, and I throw that filter on, and my job's done, collecting paychecks.
So the Amelie has the top filter is Frenchify. So if you want less Frenchification, you bring it down. And then, so this is 26.91% Frenchify.
We showed this to Jean-Pierre Jeunet, and he agreed. He said, d'accord. I've designed this with the people who write my paychecks in mind.
But one thing that's cool about the Amelie filter and why I was thinking of using it on this clip of this girl is that we don't want any Frenchification. But what we do want on this one, the Amelie filter lets you color the vignette. And so we could actually create a vignette, make it darker, but then pick some really nice blue color, skyish color. And yeah, it's going to make the grass a little bit bluer, but it's going to kind of give her this halo. And so that's just one filter. That's just the Amelie filter. We can also do the magic and the FilmLike. And anyway, so there's the before and after with that one. The other thing about the beach, and this is cool. I mean, Ryan has his effect. I actually like the effect when you have a kind of a sharper edge, and you bring it down so it looks like the sun has set, and there's just like this kind of a little bit of light on the horizon. Is kind of a cool effect. And then throwing on the depth of field plugin, we can bring the width up all the way because we want that all in focus, but then we want the sand to be just a little bit out. So I'll turn off tune, and then we'll bring the blur up a little bit, and it's very subtle. In fact, if we turn it off, you may not even be able to see it here. Yeah, I mean, you can't really see it, but yeah. It's just making the sand right in front of the camera blurry. And that's moonlight now. It not only turns day into night, but it turns sunlight into moonlight. It's like an added benefit.
All right. Well, okay. Since we're on this one, we'll do Casablanca, right? So this we shot this by basically cutting a slit through a piece of foam core and throwing a tungsten 1K through it with a backlight, so we get this really cool light slash, right? So what I want to do is I'm just going to drag Casablanca, and so it's not just about pulling out the saturation to get this look. What we want to control actually is the contrast, and we need to control how this is going to react to the exposure of this footage. So you'll see here we have high key, low key, and natural light depending on how you shot your footage. So the low key is going to compensate for low key footage. Personally, for this one, I like natural light. It's very, very contrasty. I like to throw on the magic, bring that up a little bit, and then you get that very soft halation in the highlights that you see in a lot of the classic films from the 50s. So here's our before and our after. Yeah, I want to show, I like the Minority Report one. I think it's pretty cool. So, yeah, so it's just cool. So this is our troubled hero, and we throw Minority Report on, and we get this awesome there's a color cast on it, but it's simulating a bleach bypass look. So we throw on this fog filter to increase or decrease that look. And we have a little effect mix slider too. So here's our before. It's pretty boring. It's just a guy at a sink. And now we've got sci-fi awesomeness.
I'll just give you just a quick 1 minute run through of some of these just with the hover. Yeah. So there's like a really nice golden hour. That should be previewing. Yeah. So this dream sequence, which is also makes people look like zombies. Domino, kind of a domino Transformers thing. Amelie, a really nice 300, which we have a clip actually. It's really good for that. It's cool with let's see.
And you can really nail this look with this plugin if you know how to use the color mask to isolate. So like this is shot perfectly for this because, well, it doesn't show up that well on the screen, but it's a lot of green, and her red dress you can isolate very easily. So you can create a color mask and crank up the saturation on the dress, and it looks really cool.
We got Matrix and Technicolor. Anyway, the idea I had, though, Michael, see what you think of this. So these plugins are $99, and knowing the different plugin sets that are out there, I mean, people give me plugin sets because Michael says I'm like famous. So I've used a bunch of them. I end up using these just because we kind of programmed them for us. Actually, a few people worked on them. I don't know if you know Andy Neal. He did some work on them. Lindsay, can't remember her last name, but she's a colorist. Great. Ryan worked on them. I worked on them. But they're really good. And what I was thinking is Michael actually has a store where you can order them. And if we were to give people a 25% discount, and so that would make them $75, Michael kept $50. All we'd have to sell is 100 sets of plugins, and that projector is paid for. Just 100. And I think that someone said there's 1 million Final Cut 10 users. So I think we could sell 100 of those. That's all it would take. It'd be 100. 30 seconds left, but I wanted to mention one other product called CINEMATIC COOKBOOK. Oh yeah, in the raffle we're giving away a couple of FilmStyles. Cookbook is not about post-production, it's about production. And I'll tell you something about Ryan. I mean, I only met him a year ago. I've been shooting for 25 years professionally, and if I ever have to do a shoot without Ryan there on the set, I'm going to cry myself to sleep the night before, because this guy is just the most amazing producer, director, planner, and it's just amazing, the shoots he does. If you guys do a shoot and you can afford someone like Ryan, there he is. But so basically we went in a van with ski masks, and we kidnapped Brad Rushing, who's won awards for his cinematography and done a bunch of projects. I don't watch TV, so I don't know. But anyway, so we put him in a room with 2 people at a table, and we basically had him, Ryan and he, recreated 10 classic Hollywood looks. Everything from, romantic drama to indie drama to comedy to sitcom to scary to like pop horror and classic horror. And it basically breaks down the lighting, breaks down the camera moves, and all this stuff. Do we have time for the minute trailer to wrap it up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm just gonna run this real quick that sums it up. And it also is same coupon code, but it's bit.ly LACPUG cookbook.
What happens when you give an award-winning cinematographer a $300 camera, a minimal amount of gear, and put him in a room with 2 actors sitting at a table and say, make it look funny, make it look sad, make it look scary, make it look happy? Welcome to Cinematic Cookbook Volume 1 from DV Creators, starring Brad Rushing. In this course, you'll learn how we created 10 powerful cinematic styles with exactly the same set. Where did we put the camera? How did we move the camera during the shot? And especially, how did we light the scene? And why? Cinematic Cookbook proves that cinematic excellence is in the eye, heart, and soul of the DP and director, and not in the gear. Learn how to shoot joyful, dramatic, hilarious, heartwarming, and terrifying scenes with simple lighting and camera techniques. Whether you're shooting projects for entertainment, marketing, education, or nonprofit, the knowledge and inspiration you'll gain from Cinematic Cookbook will give your projects the big-time Hollywood look and the emotional impact they deserve. Order Cinematic Cookbook today.